Democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others, as Winston Churchill reminded us. And the sort of thrust of my thinking about my talk was why there are so problems, and in particularly in American democracy right now, and how it nonetheless is, much better than the alternatives. So the title fit the talk very nicely, I think. So the problems are we have a two-party system in which the two parties are what's known as polarized, that is separated on policy considerably, one party to the left, one party to the right, with nothing in the middle. And that fits very uncomfortably with the feature of American politics that we owe to, among other people, Montesquieu, which is separated powers that the two chambers of our Congress, the House and the Senate, and the presidency have. And we have divided control over that government, and so it's very difficult for policy to come out of the government in that circumstance of divided control. And so that's been the central part of the problem in the last few years. Yes, so that we have as we have two kinds of parties, we have two kinds of politicians. We have some politicians who are regular professional politicians who care about winning office and will do what they need to do to win office and to climb from their state legislatures to the national government to the presidency. Another set of politicians care only about policy, and they would rather win office to affect policy than they would like to take policy positions to win office. And the reason they're a challenge to mix these two types is that the policy purists, as I refer to them, are unwilling to compromise. That's a great source of the gridlock that affects our government right now. And they also care only about that policy, and they'll go down swinging on that particular policy without compromising at all. And so the idea that we might get compromise across the parties to represent the general public has been questioned by the rise of these policy purists. Okay. So it turns out that the particular problem of policy purists mixing with lifelong politicians is more pronounced right now on the Republican side, and has been for some time. An example, it's not the one I gave in the talk last night, but Ronald Reagan was a classic person who could bridge the gap between these two. He talked like a policy purist, and he acted like a compromising politician to work with the Speaker Tip O'Neill, a Democrat Speaker of the House, to achieve policy outcomes. But he did speak like a policy purist often and motivated others to join. So currently there is, for example, a Senator Ted Cruz from Texas, a Republican, very smart man, very gifted politician. He is a policy purist, at least as he's revealed himself to be at this point. Last year we had the inability to form a government budget and a shutdown of the government for a while. He spoke in the Senate for 24 hours without a break, what we call a filibuster, against a policy that as soon as he sat down, he ended up voting for anyway. And so that's the sort of example of the problem of a policy purist trying to gum up the works and keep a policy from being enacted. Sorry. So the president differs from, one of his problems was that he was in government for a relatively short period of time relative to most other people who reached the office of the president. So he was a little bit inexperienced. A similar example would be Jimmy Carter, who had been governor for 2 years, because they had a 2-year term, and then president. And it was very, very similar to the amount of time. And both of them have suffered from not being used to working with a House and a Senate for a very long period of time. So that's been his problem. I think he is a politician who would like to get things done. He is generally not insistent on policy purity. For example, the thing he's going to be remembered for is healthcare. The healthcare, he purposely chose not what was the Democrats' principal choice as a healthcare policy, but one that Governor Mitt Romney of Massachusetts had enacted as a Republican, because he thought it would be able to reach out to Republicans as a Republican option and form a compromise on that. Similarly, I think since last night, while I was here, he was speaking to the nation about things that he's doing on his own about immigration. And I think he genuinely wanted to form a bipartisan coalition to achieve immigration reform, and was willing to concede on parts of it for the Republican to achieve some Republican support, and that simply didn't happen. So he ended up acting on his own. So the reason I chose the title I did is because all democracies inherently have problems. There is no perfect solution. We have established that without a doubt. And so all of them are compromises. And so every single system will have its times of flaws and concerns. As an electoral system, the exact opposite of ours is Israel, which has a very large number of parties arguing for a very specific set of things, and a couple of larger parties that form their governments. They have their own difficulties, because it's very difficult to keep a contentious lot of 10 or 11 parties together to achieve anything. So they have their problems on the floor, just as every other system does. The United Kingdom, to pick another example, the British government currently has a coalition government. It's relatively rare for them to have that. And the Liberal Democrats, the second party in their coalition, probably have not done as well as they would like to have themselves. And so I think you can point to each system to having its flaws and its problems, and the sort of purpose of politics and leadership is how to take recognition of those problems and do what's best for the country, if at all possible. That's it. My personal history is that I was very uninterested in politics. I went to a small liberal arts college, and one of the best departments happened to be the political science department. And so I got interested in it more intellectually than out of a passion of politics, and just sort of followed that. A second reason is that political science studies something that's very important, and so I feel like if I can make any small contribution, it's actually contributing something to help society. But it's also such a complex and convoluted field that there are lots of room for different kinds of contributions, and so it's an intellectually rewarding as well as just just fun to watch politics now. Where I used to think it was boring, I now think of it as an exciting field to watch. I have a hero. His name is Robert F. Kennedy. He did not achieve, of course, all that he could have because of his assassination. And it's sort of interesting because originally I thought of him as not a particularly noble politician. And then over time, particularly in the wake of the assassination of Martin Luther King, he all of a sudden it became clear to me, what was obviously true to him all his life, but it became clear to me that he was an honorable and a courageous and a genuinely brave human being, and I came to admire him greatly.